Okay, for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to be looking at Tableau, which you don't need to use this week, but it's a new tool that we're probably going to use it next week as well, so it might be good to mess around with it. For this example, we will actually need to calculate the sum of all of these. So what we're going to try to do is try to recreate the map we made in Illustrator in Tableau, just to show you what it can do. So the first thing to do is just in your data set, Watersheds with summary attributes, go, and we're going to do this exercise one more time. I'm going to create a new field called eco assets. Maybe, oops, too long. Acres, eco. That sounds good. Real 22. And here we can just add our previous one. So we're going to go this plus this plus this. And we are excited about that. So we say OK. And we can double check. Yep, that looks correct to me. Cool. So we're going to hit save, close, close. And you can close right out of queue if you want. We're not going to use it again for this tutorial. What you could do now, if you don't have Tableau downloaded and installed, there's a proprietary version and there's a public version. So go to Tableau Public, and you can hit download now or come here and figure out which one you need. I think you can just hit download, available for Windows or Mac. I just hit download the app and it worked for my machine. Hopefully it'll work for yours. And then once it's installed, go ahead and open it up. Okay, so if you haven't used Tableau before, that's great. We're not going to go too deep into it. In all honesty, I've only used it maybe 6 or a dozen times in the past few years. So what it's useful for is just taking one piece of information and kind of throwing it onto a web map and sharing it with people. So that's why we're learning it this week, and we will use it next week. But this is going to be a very whirlwind kind of demo here. So the first thing Tableau does is it asks you to either connect to a server, kind of like a database or something, or straight to a file. And so we're going to choose spatial file. And I'm navigating to my tutorial B folder and grabbing the Watersheds with summary attributes. Say OK. And so the first thing it does is it shows us the data that we're working with, so we can kind of look at it and think about what we want to visualize. So the data source tab is what we're on now. Tableau kind of oversimplifies these types into kind of these nominal or text-oriented classes and these numeric classes, which Tableau calls measure. And so you might think, okay, well, why is this being classed as a nominal layer when it's clearly a number? But that you should just remember that a lot of times numbers are nominal information, and that these characters are actually not being stored as numbers, right? These are being stored as numbers or quantities. But these are actually being stored as a text or a string. And so if you need to review data types, I have some videos up that you can check out there. But so nominal, text-oriented, and kind of numeric, or measures as they call them. So it clearly wants us to go start playing with the data right away. So we can go to this sheet 1. And the way this kind of works is that there's a sheet, and so we're going to make a visual in the sheet. And then we can go and then kind of create a dashboard out of it, or a story. And the dashboard is just a place where you could have multiple sheets. And the sheets are just kind of independent visuals. So if you wanted an array of visuals, you could make that on this dashboard. But let's start by going to the sheet. And it looks like we have nothing. And so what we're going to do is, the first thing we do is take this geometry. And if we wanted to, we could do it what they do, and we could put I think longitude in the X field and latitude in the Y field. But if I just take geometry here, which every shapefile has, or most spatial files have some form of geometry, obviously, and you just go show me, it'll just snap the watersheds right onto a base map. And what you should know is, yeah, Tableau uses Mapbox as its kind of base server, and I think it might stream some OpenStreetMap data or something like that. But you can go up to the map up here, and you can choose kind of these different base maps. So why don't we choose the outdoors one? Maybe might as well, or maybe that's too much. But anyway, find some kind of map you like here. Maybe I'll stick with the light because it's very unobtrusive, I should say. So the first thing is, so we got the geometry in there and we can see the shapes of the files, but it's kind of all one object right now. So the first thing we might want to do is throw the name in there, and that'll help us differentiate, because we know that name is a nominal field and there's a different name for every one of these watersheds. So if we take the name and throw it onto these marks here, it's going to allow us to see each of the individually named watersheds. And we get this kind of tooltip, is what they call it, where it says name and it tells us what the name is. So the next thing I want to do is, I think I actually want to create a pie chart, right? So to do that, I'm going to actually just go to pie, and my shapes are going to disappear here. So they kind of disappeared and turned into these little things that we hope are going to turn into pie charts. And so I want it to be a pie chart, and I want to make the sections of those pie charts from the measure names. So it might be kind of confusing, right? I might think I should just add each of these individually in there, but that's not how Tableau works. And you kind of have to get used to their way of doing things, and it's easy to just throw these fields around, and it will very happily paint them different colors and make them different things. But measure names means, like, let's see, if I have a generated field containing the names of each measure, used with measure values to blend measures. So these are the measure values. And the idea is that these italicized things are things that Tableau is kind of deriving from your source data. So in order for us to use multiple columns to interact in one mark or one feature object, we need to use one of their derived things, which is measure names and measure values. So I'm going to throw in measure names, and I think we want those to be, let's see, I don't want to get in trouble here. I want them to be the color, and I think I want the measure values to be the angle of the pie chart. And right now I've got way too much information. So these are the measure values, and I only care about, let's see, the top, not measure eco, but I care about these top 5. So I'm just going to get rid of everything but the top 5, and we'll see what it looks like here. So you can kind of see down here that it looks like it's kind of doing its job, but it's hard to see. They're all so small. So I think now that we've got some of the acres of wetland and all the different stuff, what I want to do is I want to make them different sizes based on the other one, the sum of the acres eco that we just made. So I'm going to bring in acres eco here and hold over size. And that's starting to look pretty good. They're too small, so I want to adjust that size. So I'm going to go to size again and just kind of scale it up a little bit. You can see my legends are auto-updating over here. And I think this is starting to look pretty good already. So let's just review for a second. We have the measure name is giving us the color for the pie chart. The sum of the areas eco is giving us the size of the pie chart. And the measure values, so the actual values of these names, right, of these fields that we've decided, these values, is giving us how much of the angle of the pie chart. And then the geometry is what allowed us to have a map, and the name is differentiating them into different, it's kind of by watershed. So that's that detail is kind of making it work. But now I can't see my watersheds. So the way to make another layer is to grab the geometry a second time, and as I drag it, it's asking me, do I want to add another marks layer? So we have one set of marks, which is the pie charts, and I'm going to add another set of marks. And there are our watersheds, but now they're on top of everything, which is kind of annoying. And so I can actually go up here and then just say move down. And so now I've got my watersheds underneath my pie charts. And so now the next thing I might do is grab that names field again so that all of these can be looked at individually. So I'm going to go names, where is it here? Name for this geometry 2, and it'll just be, I think it'll just be a detail like we did before. There we go. So now we can see the watersheds. And I think it might be nice to see the area of the watershed when we hover over that watershed. So that might be kind of a nice thing to add. So I think what we can do is go acres watershed, and we'll add that as a detail as well, like that. And so now I think, there we go. Yep. So now we're seeing the name, the area eco, blah, blah, blah. But then if we go here, we can kind of see that particular detail, habitat, or sorry, ecological asset. If I want to change the colors, I can go to, I don't want to go here, I'd want to go to my original geometry here, and I can go and change the color. I think I can rename this too. Let's rename this pie charts. And let's rename this watersheds. And then I'm going to do 2 more pieces of symbology, and then I'm just going to show you how you publish it by doing a worksheet, or a dashboard rather, and then putting it online. You should explore on your own if you want to see how all these different things work. We don't really have time this week, so the 2 last symbology things I'll do, I'm happy enough with the size, but I want to make these watersheds, I was going to make them slightly different colors maybe, just so that, yeah, let's make them different colors. So if I want to make them different colors, I go to name, and then I'm going to say color by name, and it gives me all these kind of crazy colors, but let's just say we want them to be different types of gray. Then I can go to color, edit colors, and I want to change the color palette to, let's do these Seattle grays here, sign palette, and it's saying there's not enough, it's going to create redundant colors, and I think that's okay. Apply. Yeah, I don't know, it kind of makes it more confusing maybe, but I just wanted to show you how to do that. And then, you know, if you wanted to make it very soft, you could kind of do that too. I kind of like that, that's not too bad. So, okay, so that's cool. And if you wanted to go and change the colors so that all of these were more intentional, then you would go to your pie charts, your colors by measure name. You could go to color here, edit colors, and I think you can even choose individually what each one would be. Yeah, so conserved lands we could make green. Deer wintering areas we had as a gray. Okay, so assuming you've done all the symbology that you want to, it's time to move towards the dashboard and then publishing. Before we do that though, I want to bring your attention to the legend items. So it's going to automatically try to put these into our dashboard or our layout. We know that this is not necessary. We're just using that as a texture, and I just kind of showed you how to do that, but it's not really meaningful, so we'll get rid of that. We do like this, and so we could rename these something more meaningful. But this guy down here is actually incorrect. And this is why you have to be careful with Tableau, is that it'll just spit things out and it tries to do it all for you. And so you really need to pay attention to kind of what the program's doing behind the curtain. I tried to figure it out, and I think what it's doing, because the proportions are correct, I don't know if you can kind of see, but you know, the acres eco between these two is 18,000 and 16,000, and so the proportional circle or proportional pie charts look correct there. This one is 8,000, which is about half of 16, and that circle does look like it has about half the area of that one. And then the same here. This is 3,500, so that looks proportionally smaller than that one. I think the proportional thing worked, but I think what it's doing is it's taking that acres eco, which is a total for that watershed, and it's 16,000, or 18,000 rather, for each one individually. It's adding that same figure 5 times for each of the pieces. And I don't know why it's doing that. It doesn't make sense to me. It seems like, I've tried other versions than some, like we should be able to go to attribute, and that should do what we want and change this, but it's not doing that. So it might be a bug, it might be a misinterpretation of mine, but we're not getting the right values here. And so I think what we'll do is we're going to double click this and say divide by 5. If we hit enter, when I hit enter, watch over here. I hit enter, and then there we go. There's our actual min and our actual max, and that's kind of what they should be. And because we scaled them evenly, it didn't do anything. This is still proportionally correct. So just got to be careful. Sometimes it doesn't give you what you need. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new dashboard, drag our sheet onto there, and it's going to give us our things that we don't really care about. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that because we don't care about that. I wonder if I can just rename this total number of acres, or we could just say total eco asset acreage. Okay, and then here we can call these eco assets. Oopsie. Okay, and then we could rename all of those if we wanted to, but I'm not going to waste our time, so you can do that. And the next thing we got to do is I'm going to put these on the bottom, actually. I think there's an easy way to do that, and then just kind of do that. I'm going to put this one on the bottom too. That's pretty good. Stretch it out here. I think that's as good as we're going to get it. I think there's a way you can make it so that the circles go left to right along the bottom, but I'm just going to leave it like that for now. Zoom in a little bit to make it even, and we could name this whole map ecological assets, Maine watershed, mid-coast Maine watershed, ecological assets. So just go like that and say apply. And I think let's just pretend this is done. We can change how many pixels we want it to allow it to be, but I think otherwise let's just consider this thing done and move on. If you run into problems with this, I'll be at office hours. We can talk together about troubleshooting this program if you want. So now what I would do is I think this is good. I'm going to go to File, Save to Tableau Public, and you need to sign in, or you need to create. If you haven't created one, then it's a free account. You can just make a free account. See, rumlinemaps.com. Maps are awesome. Just kidding, that's not what it is. And I'm going to call this Eco Assets. Save. And if you're connected to the internet, it should just automatically do it. And it will pull up your publish. And, for better or worse, it's a quick way to get some interesting data on a page so that someone can, the benefit I think of Tableau is that you can really just use your mouse and kind of hover over things and see what the reporting units are saying. It's a slippy map, so you can zoom in and out. The downside is that it's kind of time intensive. You can go and change all of the fonts and change some of this, this kind of map styling. It just takes more effort, and with Illustrator, you can pile on as many different pieces of data and information as you want. Whereas with Tableau Public, you're really dealing with some form of a base map, which we will in future weeks learn Mapbox, and you can bring in a Mapbox base map. But otherwise, I think with Tableau Public, and I might be wrong about this, is that you're only allowed to play with one piece of spatial information at a time. So benefits to it: interactive, awesome, Slippy map, pretty customizable for what you can get for free. Downside is it's a little cookie cutter, and it's a little, you're dealing with that kind of default problem where, once you do one of these or two or three, they all start to kind of look the same. So anyway, if you want to do that, you can, and then the cool thing is you can just share the links, and you can embed them into websites and things like that. So anyway, we'll play with this again next week, but no pressure or stress to use it for week 2. All right.